Hi, Kim, are you there? Hello?
Hi, Dr. Arwa. How are you?
I'm fine, thanks.
Let's
So,
just wait for quite a few minutes. We'll start at exactly 3 p.m.
so you can see my video, is it?
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
okay,
Perfect.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
تكلم تكلم
هما
أنت تكلم
ها ليه مكتوب دكتور
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon, دكتورة، كيف حالك؟
الحمد لله الحمد لله everything is good. كيف
حالكم؟
Hi, Dr. Halima.
Hi, Kim. How are you?
All good, alhamdulillah. Dr. Halima, we will start at exactly 2:59 to introduce Dr. Arwa.
2:59. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay. دكتور أروى، دكتور خالد، دكتور فاطمة، كيفكم؟
الله يبارك فيكم ويحفظكم ويخليكم.
يا هلا، الحمد لله، هلا أهلين.
اهلا بيكم.
تمام. في عندك صوت إشي دكتور خالد؟
كيف؟ ايوه هقفل الصوت تبغيني؟
لا بحكي إنه في شكله باكي جراوند.
ايوه حاضر، المكيف هقفله حاضر.
لا مش مشكلة. لا بس حبيت أسلم عليكم قبل ما نبدأ.
الله يبارك فيك ويحفظك. المكيف يضايقك ولا افتحه؟
لا خلاص مش مشكلة دكتور. احنا
طيب.
رح نبدأ أول مع دكتورة أروى في البداية.
كده كويس الصوت ولا في المكيف؟
لا كويس الحمد لله.
الله يبارك فيك.
يا أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا دكتورة، كيف الحال؟
مرحبا.
أهلين. Good to
زمان.
see you بعد زمان.
أهلا أهلا، كيفك دكتورة؟
الحمد لله الحمد لله. أهلين أهلين.
Good to see you and good to see my good friend دكتورة حليمة.
الله يسعدك يا رب. زمان.
أي والله زمان.
احنا 2 minutes we will start.
Okay.
يلا.
كيفك يا دكتورة حليمة؟
الحمد لله دكتور خالد، والله ما شفناك السنة شايف.
مرة واحدة. الله يبارك فيك ويحفظكم جميعا.
يسعدك يا رب. للأسف الكورونا ما خلتناش نشوفك السنة.
إن شاء الله السنة الجاية الله يبارك فيك ويحفظك ويخليك إن شاء الله. فاضل دقيقتين مش كده ولا أنا؟
دقيقة واحدة.
كمان؟ طيب كويس، الله يبشرك بالخير.
Okay, shall we start? Good afternoon, everybody. So to start the conference for the third day, I'm pleased to also to moderate this session, the first session in the conference for today, with 3 great speakers for today. We have Dr. Arwa Al-Midwahi, we have Dr. Fatma Anouti, and Dr. Khalid Madani. So we will start first with Dr. Arwa Al-Midwahi. She will do a presentation about the screening and the prevention of osteoporosis. So Dr. Arwa, just a few minutes about herself. So Dr. Arwa Al-Midwahi, she is working at the DOH since 2008. And she managed projects that have an impact on improving the public health in Abu Dhabi. And she also has a medical doctor and master in public health and nutrition and from Berkeley University. Dr. Arwa also is working, was working also as a medical doctor in Syria, in Yemen, and other Arab countries. Dr. Arwa also was working with vitamin D guidelines, and also she will do the presentation today about the screening and prevention of osteoporosis because it has also an association with vitamin D. Dr. Arwa, the floor is yours, so you can start.
Thank you so much, Dr. Halima. It's really a pleasure to see you today. And thank you for the nice introduction. I'm just trying to share my screen here. Can you see my screen actually?
Not yet.
Let me try again. Okay, so now I guess you can see it.
Yes.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much for this nice introduction, Dr. Halima. It's really wonderful to see you, and I was hoping to see you and my other colleagues in person like we do every year. Last year, we were not able to do it. I remember when we were supposed to be there, that's when this whole thing started and the lockdown. But thank you so much for making it happen this year. I want to thank precisely Dr. Aisha Dahri, the chair of this conference, and for all her hard work on all aspects. this conference and others, and of course at UAE University. Thank you so much, Dr. Aisha. Thank you for having me again. Thank you for all my colleagues. It was a pleasure to see you yesterday, actually, to see Dr. Wafa and to see the rest of my colleagues and to listen to their talks and moderation. As Dr. Halima mentioned, I will be speaking today about preventing osteoporosis.
Just before you start, Dr. Arwa, I will announce that each speaker has 20 minutes to finish his or her presentation.
Yes.
So much.
Yeah, so basically the objective of my presentation today is I will be defining what's the burden of osteoporosis, what are the risk factors, any intervention that actually we can promote bone health and make it good for everyone. And we will identify the recommendation for optimal bone health and review any pathways to evaluate osteoporosis. So why osteoporosis? Why do we talk about this? Why it's so important? Because there's a huge burden. It's a huge burden worldwide. And what is it? It is a thinning of the bone, basically. The bones become so fragile that they cause fracture. So basically, it's not just the thinning itself, but the consequences of it. Because if people get into those consequences, if they get fractures in their vertebra, in their most places where usually fractures happen, which is the wrist and the hips, this will put a whole toll on them, and the whole toll actually on the public health itself. So there is a huge burden. There's a huge burden in terms of direct cost actually to treating those diseases because they are very costly. And also there's a huge burden on the economy itself because people who actually suffer from those falls and have the osteoporosis, what happens is that they will unfortunately not be able to participate, not be able to work, and this will cause a lot of financial burden on themselves, on their families, and on the society as a whole. Now, this is actually the bad part, I would say, but there's a good part that osteoporosis is preventable. And since I work in public health, we care a lot about everything where we can lower the risks and we can prevent it from happening. So again, what is the burden worldwide? As you can see here, 200 million people suffers from osteoporosis worldwide. And out of those, 9 million people have fractures. And as I mentioned, fractures is a huge issue. In Europe, in Japan, and in the US only by themselves, there are around 75 million people. And actually, when it comes to fractures, it is higher in women than it is among men. It's 1 in 3 women with osteoporosis actually will suffer from fractures, and 1 in 5 men will suffer from fractures. So, as I said, half of the women and 1/3 of the men, which is a lot of people who have osteoporosis, are prone to fractures. So this is related to what? This is related to the hemostasis in the body, to metabolism, to calcium, to hormones. And as we're going to see in a minute, why women are more than men, it has to do with the balance of their hormones, especially after a certain age, which is the menopausal age. So it is very important to have enough calcium to regulate the hormones and to have enough vitamin D to protect the body from osteoporosis, and to have enough levels of calcium in the body to be able to have a good function of the bone. And there is something important, maybe some of you are not be aware of, that calcium is not only important for the health of the bones, it is very important for other functions. It's important for the heart function, for nerve communication, adequate blood availability. And there's something also, but I want to mention, don't think that too much of a good thing is a good thing. So I'm not advocating here by any means to go and just get over the counter, I would say, supplements of calcium, because also too much of it can be harmful because it can affect your body as well. So you need to have calcium in certain amounts, and I'm going to speak to it. If you're able to get it from food, this is the best way. So calcium deficiency, as I mentioned, it has a toll not only on bone and also on other parts of the body. And it's very important to get calcium, especially the first 30 years of life. Why I am talking about especially those years? Because this is the time when the body is capable of actually absorbing the calcium, especially up to the age of 19 years old. Your bones will absorb the calcium, and that's when the osteoclasts are working. The osteoclasts are the building bones are the things that build, because we have osteoclasts that building the osteoblast and osteoclasts that build and turn of the calcium in the bones. So they are working optimally up to the age of 19. So that's when we benefit the most from calcium, is at that age. Vitamin D is very important because it helps in the absorption of calcium. Now, there are risk factors, actually. There are risk factors to osteoporosis. Not everyone will get it. There are people, as I said, mostly women will get it, but especially like women in their, we saw earlier, that the older they get, like if they are in their 90s, the chances become very, very high of having osteoporosis versus if they are in their 60s, but still in their 60s, they can get it. Some people can get it in their 50s, but especially people who have risk factors. There are risk factors that we can change and risk factors that we cannot change. The non-modifiable risk factors, actually, this is a burden in any disease. You can see it in not only in osteoporosis, you see it with diabetes, you see it with heart diseases, you see it with other things that we cannot change it. One of them is our genetics. Unfortunately, we cannot control our hair color, our skin, our eye color. We can't control how tall we are, how big we are. Also, we cannot control certain diseases because it comes in families and it comes as genetics. So those we cannot change. We cannot change our age because with age, it's going to happen, especially if you live up to your 90s. And if you're lucky, it wouldn't, but most of the time it does. And if you're a female, you are more predisposed to osteoporosis. All of those are unchangeable. And also, dementia. When I talk about dementia, I don't mean that if you are people with dementia are more actually in risk of getting it, but people with dementia, they might not control what they eat. They will not control maybe how they walk. They might be prone more into falls and to the risk of fractures. Actually, that's why those are non-modifiable risk factors. Now, the problem with health is debatable. Poor health, there are things that we can treat and make things better. There are diseases that we cannot treat, and I'm going to talk about them in a minute. We can actually make it better. We can make it less severe, but we cannot cure it. And people who are fragile. Now, the good news is go to the modifiable risk factors. The modifiable risk factors, it can be hormonal, the low estrogen levels. And of course, this has to be under the supervision of the physician, definitely. Like people shouldn't go ahead with the hormone replacement therapies without the physician who is supervising them, because it can be dangerous. We can work, as I said, on our calcium intake, on our vitamin D intake, and very, very important, and I'm gonna on this actually in a second, is the lifestyle, healthy lifestyle, being physically active, because all of this is help. And please maintain your body weight. Don't think that being thinner is a good thing. Being thin and being under less, they found that women who are under 56 kilograms, regardless of their height, they are at risk of osteoporosis. So low body weight is not a good thing. And smoking, alcohol, those are definitely risk factors that can be avoided easily. The other thing, for the elderly who cannot see well, who need glasses, we can work on getting them the right prescription glasses just to avoid them from falling down because they cannot see their way clearly. And this way we can actually prevent recurrent falls. And the other thing, for people who have certain diseases and must take steroids, also more than 7.5 milligram of steroids a day can cause osteoporosis. And other medications. Other medications, it has been found, and there are many studies that link certain medications, some of them are listed down here, that people who take those medications are at risk of osteoporosis. Now, primary osteoporosis that happen due to aging and so on, we talked about it, but there are, as I mentioned, I told you that one of the non-modifiable is certain diseases. And as you can see here, there are serious diseases that actually can cause osteoporosis, either because your body cannot absorb the nutrients, the minerals, and the vitamins that they need. And some of them is the calcium, basically the phosphorus, which is also important in the building of the bones. Or it can be other things that actually, let's say chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, maybe because people take steroids for chronic obstructive pulmonary diseases. Maybe there are other reasons that are linked to COPDs that actually cause the thinning of the bones. It's being now actually studied further, but there's definitely an increase in the risk of osteoporosis with people who have COPD, people who are diabetics, people who have hyperparathyroidism or hyperthyroidism. Why is that? Because the thyroid gland, we know that it is very, very important in regulating regulating our body and regulating the minerals within our bodies and the hemostasis also within the cells. Also, it is very important for physicians actually who, especially dealing with women above a certain age in menopause, to look if they have any of those diseases that might cause osteoporosis. So what can we do? I said that it is the good news that it is preventable. So what can happen? Awareness and awareness and awareness. And I work for the Abu Dhabi Public Health Department, and this is what we do. We conduct awareness campaigns, and based, of course, on evidence, based on data. We utilize whatever community interventions there are that can help the people into preventing this disease from happening, working with social media, and now we know how social media is so big and how it's affecting people, so using the right channels in the right way. And also it's very, very important, not only in this, but in any other disease, is actually to work with our governmental partner, to work with our healthcare providers. We can't work alone. If we don't work in teams, we don't strategize that, then nothing can happen. And with working with our partners, we provide messages to the targeted population. And we've done at the Department of Health in 2019, we came up with the guidelines, and they're available on the DOH websites actually on osteoporosis. So, as I said, consuming nutrients, calcium is one of the most important nutrients that can help bone health. Protein is very, very important. We know where protein is. It's available not just in meat, it's also available in nuts and legumes and dairy products. Dairy products will provide us with both, will provide us with the protein and with the calcium. And also taking the recommended amount of vitamin D. And again, maintaining a good body weight or the right body weight is so important, because studies have proven that actually low body weight, low body mass index, and high body weight, high body mass index, both of them can be linked to osteoporosis. So both are very important that we have enough. And exercise, especially the weight-bearing exercises, jumping. It's been found that jumping can strengthen your bones, jogging, running, climbing, but be careful. I'm talking here about preventing before it happens, but you need to be very careful if someone already have osteoporosis. It's important to know how fragile their bones are. And actually then the exercise might have the unintended consequence in that case. So you need to balance it at that time and to make sure if it's good or it might be a risk factor. So as I mentioned, calcium is very important. How much calcium do we need? It's approximately 13 milligram of calcium. And in a second, I will just show you basically where you can get your calcium from and what is the highest sources of calcium. Now, vitamin D is also important because it leads into the building of the bones, and the vitamin D deficiency, it increases the risk definitely of osteoporosis. And this is very well known. And this is in adults, and it causes osteopenia as well in adults. Osteopenia, what is the softening of the bones. And when it comes to children, actually it causes rickets in children. So definitely vitamin D deficiency is a major health problem worldwide. Now, I'm sure that maybe my colleagues after me, they're going to talk about vitamin D. They will mention that there are so many studies that were trying to look at vitamin D and other diseases. But until now, we don't have the strong evidence that really shows that vitamin D can prevent other diseases from happening, other than its effect actually on bone health. So actually it's very, very important for bone health, but also there is an interesting study that I encourage you to look at, and this is the reference, it's mentioned down there. It came out in October 2018, and it showed that actually you don't have to take a lot of vitamin D for optimal bone health. As long as you take the recommended amount, it is the same thing. So just concentrate on the recommended amount of vitamin D. So diet, as I mentioned, exercise, weight-bearing exercise, it's very, very important. Improve the balance, the muscle strength, and fall prevention. If you have an elderly who lives with you, it's very, very important to make sure that they are in a safe environment, that there is no loose things in the house, that the carpets are, I would say, they are stable. We make sure that when they walk around, there's someone, if they need any aid, that there's someone aiding them. And so it's very, very important. And avoid using step tools if they are elderly and if they have osteoporosis, because the last thing we need if someone who's aging to fall down and get the fractures. Now, the hip protectors, those are debatable. Some people say that they might protect, other studies show don't link, but I don't see that there's a harm from actually utilizing those. So again, I can't emphasize more on the importance of preventing osteoporosis through exercise, but as I mentioned, and I repeat again, it's very important to make sure also that their bones are not so fragile where actually we get the unintended consequence of exercise. So it's very important. And there's so many exercises. It doesn't have to be something that can put someone who is old and have fragile bone in danger, but it can be balance, it can be improving their posture, it can be flexibility exercises, all of those can help. So it's the bending, twisting, but you need to avoid, as I mentioned, the exercises that might have side effects, such as high impact. So avoid those, and bending and twisting also we need to avoid those as well. Now, going back to the recommended amount of calcium intake, it goes like by age. So for menopausal women and for people above the age of 70, we recommend 1,300 milligrams. All the rest, we recommend 1,000 milligrams. Where do we find calcium? Of course, dairy products. Everybody knows that dairy products are rich in calcium, and we recommend that you have low-fat dairy products because you're not going to affect the amount of calcium, but you will have less fat, which is recommended by the American Heart Association, that we have less fat in our diets. If you are lactose intolerant, you can have it through almond milk, you can have it through coconut milk, and there are so many other sources that you can have it. There are fortified orange juices, that's in the States, I don't know if we have it here, but that are fortified with vitamin D and calcium. Now, how much vitamin D do we need? We need anywhere between 400 to 800 international units, and depends on age. Now, sources, can we get it from food? Some people say no. Actually, the best source, of course, of vitamin D is the sun. And the best time to get the sun is between the hours of 11 to 3 p.m. Okay, almost done. So between the hours of 11 a.m. and 3 p.m., this is the best time that we can get the vitamin D from the sun. But of course, for people with a lighter skin who are predisposed to lung cancer, to skin cancer, then in that cases, they need to use sun protection cream and avoid maybe certain hours. But 3 times a week, 5 to 10 minutes is fine. And those are the foods actually that have vitamin D. And the good news is that the milk in the UAE must be fortified with 400 international units per liter, per quart, sorry, of vitamin D. And now this is actually the guidelines. Down there, there's the link. You can find it on the Department of Health website. And actually within the guideline, we have this pathway. This pathway, actually, it shows you if you are predisposed or not, what are the preventable aspects, and what are the scores, the T-scores, and so on. So in conclusion, no one can deny that osteoporosis is a big public health problem, and it can have its load on the society. So we need to make sure that it is prevented. And so between calcium intake, lifestyle, appropriate lifestyle, sun exposure, and so on, we can prevent it from happening. Thank you so much. And I think I have 5 minutes to answer any questions. I don't know if there are questions who came up.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arwa, for this great presentation. Actually, we will postpone the questions till the end of the presentation for the 3 speakers.
Okay.
So, because they have related topics, so it's good to have the questions together.
Okay.
So now we will start with our next speaker. who's Dr. Fatma Al-Anouti. Dr. Fatma, she will talk about the relationship between vitamin D and vitamin D receptors in osteoporosis, also among Emirati females. Dr. Fatma, she is my colleague at Zayed University, and she is my friend. She was working also for a long time at Zayed University until now. She was the assistant dean for students affairs, and she's the associate professor now also. And she has a good experience in vitamin D and also osteoporosis, and her PhD focused on development of novel drug-based technology targeting parasite toxoplasma. And she is the founder also of the undergraduate research scholar program at Zayed University, and I'm working with her also on that now. And her current research interest revolves around vitamin D and obesity, and she was awarded also Abu Dhabi Medical Distinction Award for her numerous contribution also in public health in the UAE. Dr. Fatma, the floor is yours. I'm happy to have you in the conference this year.
Thank you so much, Dr. Halima. It's a great pleasure and honor to be introduced by a wonderful colleague and friend like Dr. Halima. I'm also very happy that this year I'm able to actually join, even though it's virtual, because it always coincides with the Vitamin D conference, but I'm really glad that I made it this time. And I would really sincerely thank the organizers again, Dr. Aisha and Dr. Laila Sheikh, for the wonderful experience. It's been a very successful conference. So I'm going to talk about the relation between vitamin D and the vitamin D receptor genetics, specifically among the Emirati females, as my colleague mentioned. And just want to introduce very quickly, talk about the vitamin D, because we're going to put the osteoporosis genetics in the context of vitamin D as well. As has been mentioned also nicely by Dr. Arwa before, vitamin D is a very important aspect when we talk about osteoporosis and bone health. And in fact, vitamin D is called a sunshine vitamin because we can get most of the body requirement from getting exposed to the sun. It is actually a very unique vitamin because it's not only a vitamin, it is a neurohormone. And there are different types of the vitamin D. There's D2, D3, and D2 is less potent as compared to D3. And again, you know, this has been mentioned before, vitamin D is also unique because it's a fat-soluble vitamin that gets also stored in the body fat. So how to get vitamin D? There are 3 different sources. Mainly, we rely on the sun exposure in order to get our body requirement. Unfortunately, this is not the case most of the time in this era. And this is why we have to resort to the diet. Unfortunately, again, not many foods are naturally rich in vitamin D. Some foods are artificially enriched and fortified. However, like the extent of fortification tends to really vary from one food item to another and depends on different variables. So it's better to focus on always the naturally enriched food and take the fortified as an alternative, as a second alternative. Lastly, but not the least, the vitamin D supplementation. And this is something that is very important, especially if you think that you have so many risk factors. Don't leave yourself to the last minute. Think about vitamin D supplementation. This has been mentioned also before. Just like a quick recap, we know that vitamin D is really very important in terms of calcium absorption. So if someone is suffering really from vitamin D deficiency, this is going to really impair and affect the absorption of the calcium. And in fact, it was really shocking because many times when you measure the level of the calcium, it's fine, even though there's severe deficiency. But this is really also very alarming because this means that the calcium is coming really from the bone. So this is why vitamin D deficiency is also a very silent or insidious disease. So we know, many people, they know that it's very well documented. There is a relation between the vitamin D and bone health and integrity of the skeletal system. But the last decade has been really, a blossom of a lot of research and studies that have documented there is an association, a very strong association between vitamin D status and blood pressure, vitamin D status and the immune system. Particularly, you probably hear now a lot of information about vitamin D and the COVID-19 even. So vitamin D and influenza, vitamin D and regulation of cell growth, like cancer, especially breast cancer and prostate cancer. And there's like a long list. If I can, just list the studies. I think yesterday I was moderating one of the sessions by Dr. Mahmoud Al-Halik, and he listed a nice slide that I often resort to. Something similar to it as I show the amount of studies that are deposited on a daily basis that investigate the association of vitamin D with another disease is just humongous. It's really huge. So we talk about the guidelines, and we talk about the cutoff values for vitamin D, and I just want to quickly mention that the cutoff value for distinguishing a vitamin D deficient from the insufficient from the sufficient is really very, very controversial. Every year we host an international vitamin D conference, and every year we're always debating, the scientists, the researchers that work in the vitamin D field from all over the world. We're always debating whether these guidelines are accurate, whether we need to, increase, decrease certain levels. There are certain scientists that go to the extreme and think, that we have to raise it every year. And there are certain scientists that, think that we're exaggerating the picture. And there are scientists that are in between. So unfortunately, I'm in the middle. So I believe that it's good to be very reasonable about the guidelines. I was living in Canada before I moved to the UAE, and when I moved here, I was really shocked because my colleague and my dear friend, Dr. Layla Abdelwarith, she told me that vitamin D deficiency is really a big burden in the country. And I was really shocked, and I wasn't convinced. I had doubts because, as we know, the country is blessed with sunshine almost every day throughout the year, and it was very difficult for me to imagine that vitamin D deficiency is really a problem. So then, I tested myself, and unfortunately, I was borderline, and I was really, really shocked. And this stimulated really my interest in the vitamin D, and I started researching about vitamin D. So when we started working on the vitamin D, we really had before we started working on it, there were like few researches here and there that were more specifically focusing on women, usually either mothers, new mothers, or women of childbearing age or postmenopausal women. And so we wanted, me and myself and a group of other colleagues, we wanted to really see the picture, and we wanted to see how big is the picture about vitamin D deficiency. So we started working on it, and since 2008 till now, we've been actually working on it, and we have shown that vitamin D deficiency is in fact a big problem in the UAE, and not only in the UAE, as you all know, it's in the Gulf countries, and as well, it's just all over the world. And luckily, we were able, again, with the collaboration of some of my wonderful colleagues, to, for the first time, publish the clinical practice guidelines of the vitamin D for the UAE. And, it was really a big success. We're really proud of it. And without the collaboration of all the wonderful colleagues, we would not be able to move forward with the research. So just to recap a little bit about the vitamin D deficiency picture in the Gulf, we know that there are a lot of risk factors, and Dr. Arwa mentioned some of them nicely. Obesity is one of them, skin pigmentation. So we know that people who have a darker skin complexion, they are more prone to be at risk of developing vitamin D as compared to the others. Lastly, but not the least, which is the lifestyle that we all unfortunately are leading. We avoid sunlight exposure because we're becoming indoor creatures more of the time, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic. So there are certain questions that, you know, self-impose themselves. One of them is it enough to just to expose ourselves to the light, to the sun? And some people, even though they expose themselves to the sun, even though they eat like food that is rich in vitamin D, no matter what they do, they still have vitamin D deficiency. So there is a genetic predisposition. There is a genetic component into the vitamin D deficiency. We always hear about a genetic aspect for diabetes, for CVDs, for many diseases, but for a long time, people did not, or the researchers did not really think that vitamin D deficiency has also a genetic component. And in fact, the last few years, there's a lot of research that focuses on that. And we know now that there is up to 20% contribution to the genetic element or the genetic component. So if really, like, you come from a family that has a genetic history of vitamin D deficiency, you might be also at a predisposition for getting this vitamin D deficiency. However, I want to emphasize that even though we have the genes, it doesn't mean that there's nothing we can do about it. There is something we can do about it, because genes by themselves are not the only factor that plays the role. There's what we call epigenetics. It's genetics interacting with everything, you know. It's about the behavior, the environment. So putting all of this together, this is what we call the comprehensive picture. So epigenetics is the most important. Again, the previous speaker talked about lifestyle changes. So for instance, if you know that you have the genes that predispose you for the disease, doesn't mean like we're just gonna end up with a disease. You might end up with a disease if you don't take an action. So the combination of all these elements, they produce the disease itself, or the phenotype, not only the genotype. So when we talk about the genes involved in vitamin D deficiency, there are a lot of genes. Some of the genes are what we call the vitamin D receptor, because it's received the vitamin D itself at the receptor of the cell, at the surface of the cell. And there are also other genes that code for the cytochrome. So for example, we have cytochrome P27A1, B1, and 24A1. These are really very important when we talk about vitamin D. And a lot of research focuses on the vitamin D receptor itself, because there is a lot of variation in the genetic element inside. So we call these changes or variations, we call them polymorphisms. And in only one of the genes, like there's 200 polymorphisms or even more. And so scientists really try to focus on these particular variations when we talk about populations. And so this is going to lead me to the purpose of one of the studies that we have been working on. It's about the association of genetic variants of the vitamin D receptor and the osteoporosis, as I mentioned, among female Emiratis in terms of risk or protection against osteoporosis. So as mentioned previously by Dr. Arwa as well, like we know that osteoporosis is really like an important burden, especially here in the country. Globally, it's even really very significant, and also in the UAE. We know that there are a lot of risk factors, again, mentioned that we have some modifiable, some non-modifiable. We know that it affects the females more than it does affect the males. One of the risk factors, as she mentioned, is the vitamin D deficiency. And this is why we wanted to actually look at the vitamin D receptor per se and see if there is any particular association between the polymorphisms in the receptor and either risk or protection against the vitamin D, against the osteoporosis. So as also mentioned, like osteoporosis, we know it's a multifactorial disease, and looking at the big comprehensive picture is the way to go about trying to solve, you know, a lot of questions and riddles about the disease. So I also want to, because this has been mentioned, and for shortness of time, I have to try to make it brief. Again, just like to point it back to the genes that are important when we talk about the vitamin D. The vitamin D receptor is really very important. It has been associated that these changes from one population to another are important in diabetes and cancer and other diseases. So it's very important to study the population that you have at hand. instead of just taking for granted that if you have an evidence from, let's say, Caucasians, that the same sequence is going to be also predisposing others in the Emirati population, because population genetics is very, very different. And this is why we need to conduct what we call GWAS studies or genome-wide association studies. So what we wanted to do is to look at the vitamin D receptor, the genetic sequence, and we wanted to see if there is a specific pattern among Emirati females and whether this pattern is predisposing them against or protecting them or predisposing them for osteoporosis. So we collected samples from patients who are osteoporotic versus the healthy ones, and we did saliva collection, and we also looked for some biochemical markers, and of course we backed up by the assessment for bone mineral density and the DEXA and all of that. And we tried to look at all the parameters that we had on hand. These are like the biochemical markers, just to compare between the two groups, of the patient. And also we looked at the allele frequency of the vitamin D receptor. So the allele frequency tells us which sequences are really important and involved. So we saw that there are certain alleles, which are the RS ending with 570 and 4410, that are associated with an increased risk of osteoporosis, where are other genes or other SNPs or polymorphisms were actually associated with protection. So this was really very interesting. And this is in a nutshell, like all of the research that we were trying to focus on for the osteoporosis. What we are doing next, we're trying to look for additional candidate genes. So I told you there are a lot of cytochrome. So we're looking currently at cytochrome P27B1. And we hope, in the future that could be, could inform or guide future population-based strategies, especially with this era of precision medicine and personalized medicine. It's very important to look at, all the myriad of drugs and medications and strategies that we have in order to fight an important burden like osteoporosis. And lastly, but not the least, I want to thank my dear collaborators for all their efforts, and also the research office at Zayed University for the support and the fund. And thank you all. And I guess we will take the questions at the end of the session. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Fatima, for this presentation regarding vitamin D and also the genetics. And I will move now to our next speaker, who's Dr. Khalid Madani. He will he will present a very interesting topic about chronological age and biological age from nutrition perspective. So Dr. Khalid Madani, we know him for a long time ago, and every time he participates in this conference. So Dr. Khalid Madani holds a Doctor of Science in Clinical Nutrition from Tulane University in USA in 1984. And he holds a bachelor degree in pharmacy from University of Riyadh in Saudi Arabia. And Dr. Al-Madani also was supervising a team of nutritionists and others also in Jeddah, Mecca, and then Saudi Arabia. And he was also working with the WHO as a consultant, and with the World Bank as a consultant also. And he is the author for many also Arabic books. And I still keep his books also in my library. He's well known in his writing and in the Arabic books about food and the nutrition and the health. Currently, he's also a consultant in clinical nutrition. Dr. Khalid, the floor is yours, and we are happy to have you also today.
Thank you very much, Dr. Halima. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee. 1 second.
Okay, Dr. Khalid.
Yes, okay. I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity, and a special thank to Professor Aisha Zahiri, Dr. Layla Sheikh, والشكر موصول للحضور الكريم. First of all, I would like to, this is the outline of my presentation, and we will ask ourselves, what is the causes of aging? Actually, there is many theory behind aging. One of them is called the Telemark Theory, and as we can see, we already know that any nucleus contains 23 pair of chromosome, and in the end of any chromosome, there is what you call telomeres. So we have a total of 92 telomeres in any cells. Telomeres are longer in the newborn baby and becoming shortening gradually through life as every time DNA duplicated. Telomeres are essential for the chromosome stability and also regulate how many times the cell can be divided. Once the telomere shrink to a certain level, cell can no more can be divided. In this case, aging will occur. The second theory has to do with oxidative damage. Sometimes they call it free radical theory. When the sources of oxidant exceed the antioxidant defense sources, what's coming actually from nutrition and also coming from the body process. So there will be abundance of free radicals. Free radicals considered a toxic or make some kind of damage to polyunsaturated fatty acid, normal DNA, normal RNA, normal protein and enzyme. And in the end will cause some kind of aging, and this. That is the second theory of causes of aging. Number 3 of the theory is mitochondria. Mitochondria DNA is a little bit sensitive to damage from oxidative stress due to they don't have repair mechanism such as the one available in normal DNA. So we already know that mitochondria consider the main sources of energy for the body. So any damage will happen will increase the reactive oxygen species and also decrease the activity of electron transport chain complex, and a slower turnoff of the mitochondria will lead to mutation for the DNA, and alternative they will cause some kind of alternate in the pathway toward apoptosis, which is the death of the cell itself, and in this case, aging will occur. Number 4 will genetic damage with aging. Actually, with the DNA damage, there will be dysfunctional for the cell itself, and as a result of that, aging will occur. Also, one of the theory also has to do with endocrine, hormone effect, growth, metabolism, temperature, inflammation, and also stress. If we take an example, during the menopausal period, ladies are decreased for the secretion of estrogen, progesterone, and the end point will lead to hot flashes, insomnia, and increased risk for osteoporosis. There is another factor for aging, which is called the lifestyle choices. So we will ask ourselves, why some people look young for their age, where others are old for their age? Actually, the answer for this question is the human being has two bodies, two kind of ages. One is called chronological age, and the other is called the biological age. And the same one is biological age. Some people name it physiological age, and some people name it as physiological age. So chronological age refers to the person age in year from date of birth, while biological age are referred to the person age as estimated from the body health and the probable life expectancy. There is 7 health lifestyle which seem has a very impact or very effect on the biological age, which meaning in the health of the body. This includes sleeping regularly and adequately, engage in physical activity regularly, not smoking, not using alcohol or drugs, eating a healthy balanced meal, including breakfast regularly, maintaining a healthy body weight, relief of stress. As we noticed from this slide, there is two factors has to do with diet. So over the time, there is the effect of this lifestyle shows is accumulated. So therefore, people who follow most of the practice live longer and have a better quality of life, also better health as they age. And this slide shows actually older people have a very risk factor, many risk factor for becoming malnourished. And this is slide shows the many factors that can cause malnourished for the elderly people. And the consequences of the malnourished for the elderly people will cause impact in the quality and the quantity of life and also morbidity and mortality. And will affect all this as we see in the slide, including the alteration in the pharmacokinetic. I mean by pharmacokinetic, like the movement of the drug in the human body. So that include absorption, absorption on the distribution, metabolism, exercise, excretion. So we all 6 basic nutrients are essential for everybody. However, we have 9 key nutrients needed for aging. These include number 1, water. And as we can see, the dietary reference intake for fluid may be difficult to achieve for older people due to reducing food intake. We aim for 6 to 8 cups of water daily. And this slide shows the symptoms of dehydration. When we talk about energy, we will see that also considered important for the elderly people. And this slide shows estimates the calorie needed for the elderly people. As we can see, there is 3 factors: age, exactly, and sex, I mean gender, and also physical activity. And this one for the male. As we can notice from this slide, as the age increase, also the calorie decrease. Actually, this decrease primarily due to loss of muscle mass and also lean tissue, which lead to decrease the basal metabolism. Also, in addition to that, lower physical activity. Fiber, inadequate water intake, or lack of physical activity, or some medication will complicate the constipation. Fruit, vegetable, whole grain, all these considered good sources of fiber. Increase of fiber should be slowly, otherwise there will be cause gastric intestinal disturbance. When we talk about protein, we notice that all age of the adult people need only 0.8 gram per protein per kilo body weight. And we will make some kind of restriction for someone who has a problem or insufficient functional for the liver or for the kidney. Protein are very important for the elderly people because it's considered important for muscle mass, boosting the immune system, and also the bone mass. When we talk about vitamin B12, we found it have a lot of function for the body. And actually, the recommended daily allowance for vitamin B12 is only 2.4 microgram per day. Deficiency associated with pernicious anemia and also nerve damage, cognitive decline. B12 is common among older people because they have decreased the gastric acid. Gastric acid is very important because it will separate the B12 from the protein which hooked it together in the food. So in order for the B12 to be absorbed, so they have to separate it from the food. When we talk about vitamin D, we found that this is a function of vitamin D, but actually the recommended daily allowance for elderly people increase. This is due to there is a reduction in the skin capacity to make vitamin D, and also the kidney have less capacity or ability to activate vitamin D by adding one group of OH. vitamin D also with insufficient plus insufficient for the calcium may cause osteoporosis. When we talk about calcium, we found that about 2% of the body weight are calcium, 99% of the calcium are in the bone and teeth, the rest in the body, which 1% in the otherwise in the body. We will notice that during the elderly period, there is increase intake of calcium. Actually, this is due to there is a decrease in the absorption of calcium from gastrointestinal and decrease the reabsorption in the kidney that lead to increase doses for calcium. Also, calcium deficiency plus vitamin D deficiency may lead or may to consider a risk factor for osteoporosis. When we talk about iron, we'll see it has a lot of function, but actually during fertility period, we found that the lady need about 18 milligram of iron, and during pregnancy need about 27 milligram of iron, while after the menopause or after the age of 50, for male and female need only 8 milligram of the iron. If there is any problem for ladies, they have deficiency that may be related to chronic blood loss or stomach acid output, there is a decrease. Actually, gastric acid is important because it's make ionization for the iron would make it more soluble, so it can be absorbed easy from the gastric intestine. Vitamin C actually very important for non-heme iron, but it has nothing to do with the heme iron. Also will increase the activity. About 40% of the iron which is available in the animal source is considered heme, so the bioavailability is a little bit higher than a non-heme iron, which is available only in the animal, 100% in the plant sources. Zinc also has a lot of functional, but for the elderly people, there is some medication because they're taking a lot of medication. Most of them have to do with decrease the absorption or increase the excretion through the kidney. So they need to be careful about that particularly metal. Zinc is very important for the immune system. So in this case, we have to be careful because to protect from any infectious disease. In order, we can use a nutritional icon in order to transfer the recommended daily allowance or dietary reference intake from milligram or microgram to actually food, which is called food-based dietary guideline. And they can use this icon in order in home or grocery store and restaurant, we can implement it. Actually, it can be available for everybody, but for this particular people, which elderly people, Tufts University actually made the first icon for the elderly people for transferring the microgram and the milligram and the gram of recommended daily allowance to actual food, so you can use it during taking the food. And it's made by Tufts University, and this is the first icon used. And also Tufts University in 2007 make a copyright for this icon, and in 2008 they publish it. That's updated from the previous one, but actually they added the physical activity in this icon. And this is another icon updated. And this is the final one which is published in 2016. If we notice that it's similar to my plate, which for everybody or any age, but this particularly, it's only similar, but this particularly designed for the elderly people. If we notice about the fruit and the vegetable, half the plate coming from fruit and vegetable. When we talk about healthy oil, we mean by that we already know that about more than 95% of the oil is from triglyceride. And this triglyceride mainly the main component of the triglyceride is fatty acid. So there is healthy fatty acid and the harmful fatty acid. The healthy fatty acid is monounsaturated fatty acid or polyunsaturated fatty acid. The bad fatty acid is the saturated one, because the saturated one will raise the total cholesterol in the blood, while the trans fatty acid, which is considered the worst one, it's raise the bad cholesterol and decrease the good cholesterol. So in this case, we have to get as low as we can of the trans fatty acid. When we talk about herbs and spices, we can take variety of them. In this case, we will decrease, improve the flavor. In this case, we will decrease the intake of salt. When we talk about the fluid, we have to increase it at least from 6 to 8 cups a day. Grain should coming from coming from fortified grains or whole grain, because the whole grain contain more vegetable, more vitamin. I mean vitamin, more mineral, more phytochemical, more fiber. When we talk about dairy product, we can take it low or skim milk or low and skim milk product. Protein, we can take lean meat or poultry or fish, nut. All this can be good sources of protein.
Khalid, you have 3 minutes left, so
Okay.
you can conclude with that.
This is the conclusion of my presentation, and I would like to present some of the book what I've been, as mentioned, Dr. Jazallah Kull Khair. This is the first book. This one is translation.
MashaAllah, Dr. Khalid, yani you have a lot of books, MashaAllah.
Translation, and this one translation. This one academic book, and this one academic book. This one academic book. And this one academic book. I have the honor to be to share with Dr. Aisha this book. It's my pleasure, Professor Aisha. شكرا وجزاكم الله كل خير.
Thank you very much, Dr. Khalid, and for this great presentation. We enjoyed it. And I would like to ask the previous presenters, Dr. Fatima, Dr. Arwa, if you can come also and okay, open your cameras. Thank you so much. So I just would like also to ask you some questions from the questions that we received from the audience. So I will start with Dr. Arwa.
Yes.
There is a question saying, is lactose-free milk less in calcium?
It shouldn't, because actually when they take the lactose out of it, they make sure that the other nutrients are not deprived from the lactose. The idea of having it is actually that giving people what they need through the lactose-free milk. So it should have the other vitamins and minerals the same as the milk. It should be available in the lactose-free milk. Yes.
Thank you. There is another question. I'm not sure if it is related to you or to Dr. Fatma, but I will raise it. Some studies are showing that that full fat milk is healthier than skimmed due to fat soluble vitamins, and because it decreases the rapid insulin release. How accurate is that? What do you think?
Well, actually, as she said, it's studies. It's just in studies. And until something is really proven, we cannot recommend it. And we go what is internationally recommended by the American Heart Association. And if you look at Harvard, you look at Mayo Clinic, you see that the recommendation is still that we go with low fat, like Dr. Khalid mentioned. We avoid the saturated fats and we avoid the hydrogenated fat. And our recommendation is go with the low fat diet. In terms of actually the vitamins, that they are fat soluble, they are fat soluble in the body. And this is a misconception that some people think that is fat soluble in the food itself. It's fat soluble in the fats in your body. So actually once you get, because as you can, we take vitamin, even D, even though it's fat soluble, we take it as pills. We don't take it as a fat with fat, but in the body, it gets actually, it's worked out with the fat in our body. I don't know if Dr. Fatma, she has something to add to this as well.
I mean, I completely agree. And also when they fortify or like they use, they add to any product, they use the micelles, which is, they package it by itself. But I think, some of the studies are actually showing not only like at the level of vitamin D, they're trying to promote for full fat as compared to the low fat, because they have noticed that there are some pollutants and contaminants that can, when we talk about fat-free, they notice that the level of these pollutants and contaminants in the fat-free are higher. So, there is a certain aspect into it, but like Dr. Arwa mentioned, it's still a study.
Yeah, thank you so much.
I have one comment regarding what they might. Actually, they take the fat out of the milk to decrease the calorie, because 1 cup of the calorie of the milk, which whole milk is 150 calorie, and the low fat is 120, and without skim milk is only 90 calories. So they decrease the calorie, because calorie, when they increase, it causes obesity, and obesity considered the main public health problem in our region.
Thank you so much. So another question to Dr. Fatima. So what is the best time to expose to sunlight? What do you think?
Wow, this is like if I can answer you, this will be the $1 million question answer. However, it depends on so many factors, and this is something we get all the time. But there's no one, formula for everybody, because it depends on the body weight, depends on the age, depends really on the skin complexion, different things that come into play. But usually, it also depends on, for example, like now it's getting a bit more warmer and hot, so we definitely need to avoid the heat. So it's better now when it's summer, I mean, to try to expose early in the morning and later in the afternoon, and avoid the time that is supposed to be the most ideal to get the vitamin D. The good thing about vitamin D, getting it from the sun, is that it doesn't have to be in one shot, like in one time. So it can be divided into different intervals. So even if the weather is nice today and I go to the beach and I spend some time in the sun, it might suffice me the whole week. The optimal time really to get the maximum of the UVB ray is between 10 a.m. and 3 p.m. But we know this is the crazy time also. So usually you have to use common sense. It was before they used to call it like safe sun exposure, but now we call it sensible sun exposure. So that means that you try the range that is best for you. It depends again on the skin complexion. Some people, they need maybe 10 minutes. Some people, they need 20 minutes. So if the skin is darker, they need more. Older people, they need more, and other factors. So it's
yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Fatima. The last question, because we don't have enough time, is to Dr. Khalid. This is from Dr. Lily. Dr. Khalid, if you name one factor, which one will be the most important one in slowing down, shortening chromosome tolerance?
That's a very good question, actually, to be honest with you. Actually, the 7 factors are very important, but physical activity is the important one of them.
Yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Khalid. And thanks for everybody. Thank you so much for this great presentation in this afternoon.
Can I say something, Dr. Halima, before you end? Yeah, it's just because there was a question about how come that weight less than 58 kilograms, regardless. Actually, it's not meant this way. It's definitely the body mass index is the most important thing. So we definitely take both the weight and the height into consideration. But actually, there were studies that linked the 58 kilograms into osteoporosis, but those studies were just among other factors. It looked at other risk factors. It looked at the things that of course, I went through. There's not enough time to go through it, but that's what it's meant. But definitely we take height into consideration because the BMI is the main thing. So I just wanted to clarify this point.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arwa. So just we need to have a photo for this also panel. I think, Kim, you will take the photo?
Yes, please. So everyone, please look at your camera on your laptop. And when I say 3, smile. Okay, 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Arwa, Dr. Fatme, Dr. Khalid, and Dr. Halima for your time. We hope to see you physically soon.
We hope so too. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
God bless you all.
Bye. Great to see you. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, Jamila.
Hi, dear. I'm trying to put the background, so I'm going
It's a little bit complicated.
No, I'm trying it now. I put the
Okay.
background. I accepted. It's there. So how can I make it to be appear on the
You
background?
have to. I was told by Kim this morning. It's yeah. You have to go.
It's there. It's in the background. I install it. I'm double clicking on it. Everything is done. I have agreed.
But you have to go via different app. So I don't know. Let's wait for Kim to come.
I think, Miss Jamila, it doesn't work on your background, so maybe we can just remove it because I can see your face that it's trying to show, but I think your background.
I deleted, unfortunately. Oh, so this one I'm trying. I add it. See here. I drag it. It is virtual background. So how shall I do? It will not work?
It's okay. It's okay for now. Let's.
My background is fine. It just done.
Yes, Dr. Lily, Professor Lily, shall we start?
Yes. Yes, by all means.
Oops. I'm nervous.
Shall I get started?
Yes.
Yes, please.
Do I have the other speakers?
We'll try to get them in soon.
And
can I share my screen now?
Yes, Dr. Hiroki is here, and Miss Hala.
Not yet, Professor Lily, but you may start with Ms. Jamila.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much indeed, Kim. Thank you. And good afternoon all, and good morning or good evening, wherever you're joining us from. Thank you for the opportunity to chair this particular session, and thank you for the organizers for inviting me to be a moderator of this session called Healthy Food Choices that promote health and well-being. Now, we've got three fabulous speakers on this particular panel for this afternoon. It's an hour, 20 minutes each. And let me introduce you immediately to our first speaker, Ms. Jamila Ahmed. Ms. Jamila Ahmed is a senior specialist health promotion officer at the Abu Dhabi Public Health Center, Department of Health. She has conducted numerous training and workshops to improve physical, mental, social, and spiritual health and well-being of the people in the Emirate of Abu Dhabi. She's the project manager for the Public Health Ambassador Program, which is an initiative to emphasize the role and share the responsibilities of all segments of society and individuals in order to promote health and well-being. She also was a regional master trainer for cancer control program in Allele, and Jamila was the new nurse graduate facilitator for Allele for 5 years and the coordinator of WHO body-friendly hospital workshops. Well, she has presented a national, international, and regional conference, and she took a second place in Abu Dhabi Award for Excellence in Government. Well, she's one of the frontliners of the hidden soldiers to fight against COVID-19 pandemic, which I'm really pleased to read. And with that, I present to you Ms. Jamila Ahmed with Healthy Food Choices to Promote Health. Over to you, Jamila.
Thank you very much, Lilian, for the very nice introduction. No, I was feeling that, oh my God, we did a lot of things. Thank you very much. Still, we are the hidden soldiers, actually, and we are doing a lot. And inshallah, this pandemic will go away and everybody will go back as it is. Like we can see our each smile. Today, I'm here just to say a word. Actually, my lecture, it was presented with a lot of my colleagues the first day, second day, and today even. So they make it easier for me. I will just continue what they started off. We have a word in Arabic, always we say, هل نحن نأكل لنعيش أم نعيش لنأكل? Do we eat to live or we live to eat? We always have to ask ourselves, I'm eating to live, or I'm eating to live, or we are eating to live? So this one always comes to our mind. So if we are eating to live, so this means that there is something will make us to live. It is the eating or the love. Love is very important and it's essential for all of us to have. Yes, the love will let us to live, but the food is very essential for us to live. So to live longer, if we will live, I need to live very healthier, and I want to live longer. So if I want to live more healthier and for longer life, so I need to have a very nice choices of my food, because the food is the one, and the food and the exercise is what is the one which is make me to live longer. So I need to choose it and pick it very nicely, so I will live longer, healthier, younger, and I will continue. I can see the other generation which is coming on. So this is very essential for us to have a healthy food living. Why? Because we will maintain our healthy weight. Maintaining healthy weight, you can have longer life also, because the central obesity will be less, and you will reduce the risk for cardiovascular disease, and you promote an overall health. You can go and jog and dance for 1 hour without being tired or sick. So to have a healthy food and healthier, we will go just little bit details in those foods to talk about how to make it healthier choices. We should have a nutrition, which is the providing and promote nutrition for ourselves and allowing us to proper growth and grow up and keep growing. And then we have the nutrients, which is the smallest component that is happening in our food that you cannot see, but making our life to have longer life. So yesterday, Professor Nahla gave a very nice presentation about the macronutrients and micronutrients. I would just simplify it for us. Sometimes when I give my lectures for the mothers, when I go to schools and to teach for lower, I always tell them that the macronutrients, it's the carbohydrates and the protein. It's the block when you build your house. When you build your house, you put a block over a block over a block. But if I just keep the blocks like that without having something in between to hold, it will fall down, isn't it? So what should I put? I should put the micronutrients, which are the cement and the water and the vitamins, all that it will hold that block. So this is as simple as it is. I cannot build a house without having a very strong blocks. And this is the what will continue. The minerals and the vitamins and the water is part of this micronutrients that I can put and help. So AMDR, this is the latest studies that how much carbs we need, because we are having energies and doing and walking and doing exercise. So this is what we need of the fat and the protein. You will see it's little bit weird because part of the fat it's available in the carbs and in the protein. So for this is showing the fats higher. Let us think about the choices. If I have 1 gram of carbohydrate, it have 4 calories. And 1 gram of the protein, it have also 4 calories. But 1 gram of oil, it have 9 calories. So we have to think carefully and have a nice choices. What shall I take? Which way should I take at this time? I have 1 slice of bread, it have 40 kilocalories. Then I have 1 ounce of lean meat. Could be salmon or different. Then I have 1 teaspoon. So each one has differences, but they're all having 45 kilocalories. But which will be my nice choices? I can have it in all. I can make a diet of Snickers or a Twister or Twix or anything. I can have it. I can reach to my weight. I can give you specific, and it will give you how much nutrients and calories for your weight, and you will lose weight. Yes, you will lose, and you are happy because you are eating your sweet. But at the same time, you are having empty calories, empty, no nutrients. You will not have the blocks. You will not be that much healthier. So we always have to think wisely. What shall I choose? What shall I take? What shall I eat? When shall I eat? What type of food shall I eat? What will be my choices? This is very important so we can live healthier and longer in our life. So there is some risk factor that I cannot change with the life, okay? Like genetic factors, even aging process factors. For example, it's not, I don't have some secret drinks that I will have it and it will make me younger. But there's some modifiable factor that I can help that will reduce the cardiovascular disease, like physical activity. I will reduce my tobacco use, my dietary habit, my deficiency of iron or calcium or vitamins. I can make it much better. So I will reduce my risk. Sometimes, oh my God, what to do? This is a hereditary family. What shall I do? I cannot stop. No, you can still reduce that one. If it is meant that you will have cardiovascular disease by the age of 25 or 35 because of the family history, you can reduce this one or delay it as much as you could, or maybe it could be less. And not come if you have a healthier diet, you choose tobacco reduction or physical activity. If we go to Waqaya program, which is a comprehensive program, Dr. Arwa, if she's there, she knows about the program. It was done by Abu Dhabi Public Health Center and DOH. And this is a very comprehensive program. It's done only for locals, UAE national, from age of 18 to age of 75. And when we did the studies 2018-19, it was available. And the latest studies in 2020, that new diabetic cases were discovered through this comprehensive screening. In 2018, we had like 1,600 cases of diabetic and pre-diabetic, then in 2019, 2,200 cases. So total of these cases within how many years that we are getting them. So this is mean that still the cases are there and it's pre-diabetic for them. So we need to go more in details and look what are the reasons behind getting pre-diabetic patients and having more. Still, you can have your biryani, you can still have your foods, you can have your karak, our tea, our famous tea, but you can have it in a healthier way. Instead of using trans fat or the condensed milk, you can have a fresh milk. Boil it with no sugar or sweeten it, then it will be with honey, then you will have a healthier karak. Still, we can go for our traditional food, but cook it in a very healthier way. Saturated fat and healthy at all. And this will increase the risk of having heart disease. And you know what is the first killer in UAE? If we come, it's cardiovascular disease. Unfortunately, something that I can control it with my food, choices of the food, then the exercise that I will do. A simple change, increasing in reducing saturated fat, I will take more vegetables and fruits. It will increase the risk of, reduce the risk actually of getting heart disease by 73% according to the World Economic Forum. I put all the references for me. So this is, I think most of us are aware of USAID Dietary Association about the food and the serving. And if you come and see the plate that I should have it, the plate, half of it, fruit and vegetable. It's not all rice and meat. It's not all rice and meat, and when we'll eat the salona or the food will come from our hand. No, sometimes we are having the plate, it's all rice and meat. Where is the vegetables? Oh, we forget them in the kitchen. It's okay, I am having my meat. So most of our plate full of meat, we are not having the portions of the plate that you should have it in your plate. Half of it, it's fruit and vegetables, then little grains and protein, then the dairy. This is what we should have. Enjoy your food, but eat less portions. According to your need, avoid oversizing. Eat slowly. The message that it will come to you that you feel that you are full, it's like 20 minutes actually. Imagine that you were eating, a call came to you. You were busy with the call, and you took like 2-3 pieces of your food or rice or whatever you are eating. Within 20 minutes, you were busy with the call. The message will go that you are full. Then when you will come to it, I lost my appetite. You did not lose your appetite. You took your enough, maybe 3-4 spoons of the food that was much enough for you. But the time that you give it to eat, digest, let it be going in the stomach until the message go to your brain. Just wait 20 minutes for it, and it will come, and this will reduce. I was traveling between Al Ain and Abu Dhabi every time. I was having my cheese, for example, or my egg. It's like almost 1 hour. When I reach, I'm full. I feel like I'm done. I'm full with one egg. Then I had my coffee, my drink, then my snack. Then I will have my lunch. So when the time the lunch will come, I will not be like a starving person who will be eating. Why? Because I had my sequences of the food, my breakfast, my snack, then my lunch. I don't starve my body until the lunch, then I will eat, then I will feel like I'm over eating the food, then it will increase my weight, maybe I will feel sleepy, then I will, this is the mechanism how it happens in the body. Food to increase, make half of your bed fruit and vegetables, make it whole grains or grains, and switch it to the low fat food or fat free if it is possible according to your age and your capacity. Your age if it is children or if it is adult. Then we have always reduced the sodium which is available in frozen foods. So always when you go read the label, reduce the choices of the sodium. Whenever sodium is more than 5, it take less than 5%. Drink water instead of any sugary food. Why water? Water is the best actually. Then limit the unsaturated fat or the trans fat, or if you can reduce it totally in your food if you could, especially the trans fat that is hidden and you cannot find it anywhere. I don't know how many minutes I do have, but I'm trying to be very quick. This is UAE guidelines actually for us, according to the studies by Ministry of Health. They did, and they want
5 more minutes.
5 more. Oh, I'm so quick. I'm trying. I'm just almost done. So according to Abu Dhabi, to UAE Ministry of Health, this is special guidelines on serving for Abu Dhabi for UAE people. Only for UAE people according to our culture, our need, our studies. And this is our serving that we need. It's totally a little bit different from the American guidelines because it is just customized to our culture. So if we have a food, we should be adequate, moderate, varied of different type of food, balance, contain everything. You cannot make it always fish, or only protein without fruits and vegetable, or only carbs without the other. Should be balanced and varied, and the calorie should be meant to your body. So high in what? In fruits, vegetables, whole grains, and healthy fats, and water as well. Limit the sodium, reduce it, saturated fat, and any added sugar as much as you could, and avoid the trans fat. It's hidden. You will eat a bar of chocolate, trans fat is there. You will eat the chips and you will say, I'm hungry, I will eat. It's not giving you any nutrients. It's just a trans fat. It's like you are drinking coffee. Imagine our children, how much we are giving just to keep them calm. Take these chips, full of trans fat. How they will grow up when they will be elder. The disease will come back to their bodies so easily because they did not build from a strong block at the beginning. Then we should have a very nice of cooking, like cooking method, grilled, steaming, to make it broiling, grilling. Me, I'm doing it with the air cooking as much as I could. The non-stick cookers that it will not, no need for you to put a lot of oil for it to be there. And the condiment is nice. The baharat give me the nice smell. But we have to reduce the pickle. Sometimes the olive have a lot of salts and sometimes oil. Then we need to reduce it. The butter, mayonnaise, reduce it, but take little that it give you the taste that you want. With all of that, eating without any physical activity, it won't help. I know that 80% in the secret is in the food and 20% in exercise, but they should be balanced together. So even you have to energy your balance. What do I mean by that? You cannot have a negative balance, like you will take a lot of, you will have less, for example, you will do a lot of exercise and you will take less, so you will lose weight. And you should not have a positive balance. You will take higher intake and you will not do any exercise. So surely you will gain what? It should be a balance, an equal balanced diet for you and your people around. I was so fast, I know, but I need to give the messages. Take away messages. Live healthy. Have your better choices that you are having them. Your children, let them get the habit from yourself. Whatever I am doing, one time when I start to change a lot of things in our house, my son told us, we are starving. My mother removed everything in the house because I was having a wrong choices long time back. I changed a lot. They start to have the new habit with me. Even the twister that they were buying it from outside, I'm making it at home. They said, Mom, it's much healthier tester than the one we were buying before. So they always requested from me. Everything from home. You are a best cooker, believe me. Be always safe, and thank you for your patience and listening to me. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you, Jamila. I appreciate you sticking to the time, which is fabulous. And
before that, really, I would like to thank Dr. Aisha. I would like to thank the IGD for their support and Kim especially for her patience in getting back and forward with my email. Thank you very much.
Fabulous IT skills of Kim. Well, we all depend on her to survive these few days, but thank you. Okay, just stay online now and we will be coming back to you as part of the question and answers. Now we've got our second speaker and we've got now Dr. Hiroki Wakamatsu. Dr. Wakamatsu received his PhD in agriculture from the United Graduate School of Agricultural Science at Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology in 2018. After completion of his degree, he was appointed as a faculty assistant professor in the Institute of Agriculture at Tokyo University and CEO of the Tokyo University of Agriculture and Technology Research Institute. And his research focuses on organic chemistry and food chemistry. He has an experience of globally collaborating research with businesses and developing with universities and companies. Globally collaborating, he's trying to launch innovative businesses. How wonderful. Now, I present to you Dr. Hiroki with his topic on promoting health, benefits of date palm fruits, the future of date palm fruits. Over to you, Dr. Hiroki.
Thank you very much. I very appreciate for your kind introduction, Professor Lady. Thank you very much. And especially, I would like to sincere appreciation for the Dr. Aisha and especially all the staff and especially the Miss Kim, so helping us to. Nice to meet you again. So today, I would like to share with our activity with UAE and UAE University and the other companies, so Japanese companies and Apple companies. So today, I just doesn't give them the knowledge. I would like to share with our the activity, and then we would like to think with you the future of our food security. So it is very important for our future. So first of all, This is the running object, so you can get the fundamental knowledge of raw calorie sweetener for healthy life. And then you can learn the traditional Japanese food culture in a collaboration with UAE culture, and you can feel project in a progress to add new value to the palm foods in UAE. So by the way, so now I'm in Tokyo, so you know that it is far away from the UAE. So it is, I think, so the capital is Tokyo, so the 8,000 kilometers away from the UAE. So firstly, I would like to share with our universities. I think the Tokyo University of Agriculture Technology is not so famous, but it is a kind of the national university. I think you almost all you know that the University of Tokyo is one of the biggest university in Japan. So the origin is the same as us. So by the way, we choose to depart from the University of Tokyo, and then so we focus on the two areas. One is the agriculture, and then one is the engineering. So our university is not so big. So it's just a 400 faculty member and 4,000 undergraduate and 2,000 graduate students. By the way, we have a long history. So our university established as experimental field of silk production in 1894, 74. So the Fuchu campus, the Faculty of Agriculture, focused on the production of the silkworm. And the Kugane campus is the Faculty of the Engineering. So it first started to make the automatic looms. So it makes the clothes. So you know that the Toyota company, it is a kind of automobile company. It is very famous, and I think UA people are using a lot. So starting from this automatic loom. So this is our two big business in the around the 18th centuries. By the way, this is the scenery of around our universities. So this is the Otakanomichi Pass and the Tamagawa Josui waterway. So our surroundings are very rich in forest. And we have a very long history. So this is the Okunitama Shrine. So it has a 2,000 history. So you can feel the historical.
Dr. Hiroki, can I just interrupt for a second? I've been asked to ask you to show the slide full screen on your presentation.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. For better visual effect.
Maybe I've missed. Oh, wait a minute. I think this is here. It works.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay, sorry. Okay, and also, so we have a lot of forests, and I think Dubai is very famous for the horse races, and our city also has a national horse race field. So by the way, this is our campus. We have a very huge experimental farm in Tokyo. So it has 15 hectares. So it is very huge compared to the other national universities. So by the way, do you know the statin drugs? It is very famous drugs for the patients with a high blood cholesterol. So our university developed this kind of the drugs. And also, do you know that 70% of the world wheat species born from our university? So our university developed the kind of the wheat, and then so the 80% of the world wheat. So using this DNAs. So by the way, so our collaborative activity with UAE University, so towards the sustainable food and energy systems, so it started the 2050s. So it already passed the 6 years. So today we would like to share with our progress, and then we would like to think with you. And this is my self-introduction. So my major is the organic chemistry and food chemistry. So this is the introduction of the date palms. So I think this palm is everyone knows in the UAE people. So culturally, economically, very important agriculture product in Arabic, also in African countries. And so it contains a high energy and various nutritions. So, and it can cultivate in a severe condition, so even in the deserts. So I think it is a very ideal food. So this is a world productions. So now is around 8.6 million tons per year, and the UAE countries. So world seventh world productions. So very huge. And so this is this production in the UAE. So this is all the agriculture products, and half of the agricultural product is the dates. So this is the main agriculture industries. However, so I heard that so we have a challenge of the date palms. So there is a main two reasons. This consumption of the young generation is decreasing, and the dates industry is struggling to make profit. So that's why we challenge to adding a new value to the dates palms. So by the way, so in Japan, we are using the dates. So do you know that this is okonomiyaki? It's a kind of the pancakes. So we are using a very special sauce. It's a very sweet and very good for this kind of the okonomiyaki pancake. So it is very delicious, and then so it contains a lot of dates. So we are very familiar with dates palm itself. But actually, so the Japanese people doesn't know that. So okonomiyaki sauce that contain the dates. So, but our culture is very familiar with the taste of the dates. So I know that social challenge in UAE is that depend on oil and job creation and food security and food self-efficiency and also the health, obesity, diabetes, and food cultures. Then we have two approaches. The one is the low-calorie sweetener production from the dates palm and the collaboration of the Japanese food cultures. So first, I would like to share with you the low-calorie sweetener productions. So we collaborated with the Japanese bee food science companies. It is one of the biggest low-calorie sweetener production company in Japan. By the way, do you know the low-calorie sweetener? So I think it is a very famous. The sorbitol and a mannitol and a xylitol is a very famous. So they are widely used in the food industry as a low-calorie sweetener and a thickener in the food. I think most of the food, processed food, contains such kind of low-calorie sweetener. So our challenge is to making that kind of low-calorie sweetener from the dates palm fruits. So actually, so dates contains 30% of the glucose and 30% is a fructose. So then we would like to try to make a polyols like this sorbitol. So usually, so it needs two steps. For example, starting from the starch contain, for example, the sugar cane like that. So starch, first we use in hydrolysis, then hydrogenation. But you know that the dates starting from the glucose and fructose, we just added one step, hydrogenation. Then we are doing such experiment. So this is the actual hydrogenation reaction of the date palm fruits. So D-glucose under very high pressure and 145 degrees Celsius conditions, and then added hydrogenations. Then so we can get the sorbitol and the mannitols. And our total yield was around 70%. Now we can get only one steps. So this is a table of the sugar consumption composition of the date syrup and reduced date syrup on the 100-gram dry matter basis. So of course, date syrup contain a lot of glucose and fructose, but after the hydrogenation, so we can reduce the glucose and the fructose. Then we can get the sorbitol and the mannitol. So this is the result of our research. And also we analyze the nutritional analysis. So the dates of, but the content of the protein and lipid, carbohydrate, sugar, and the dietary fiber, and the ash is totally the same. But the dietary fiber is reduced because of the we have to purify it. So in that the process, so the dietary fiber are removed. But other nutrient is totally the same. And this is the color of the daytime syrup, and A is the daytime syrup, and this is the reduced ones. So a little bit lighter than the daytime syrup. And then we research the other function of the reduced daytime foods. So one in the foreign shortcut method. So it shows the amount of the polyphenols in the 1 gram samples. So that we compare with the date palm fruits and the date syrup, then the reduced date syrup. So it is totally the same, the amount of the total of the polyphenols. And also we check the flavonoid quantifications, the amount of the flavonoids in 1 gram samples. So they palm fruits and the date syrup and the reduced date syrup. So it seems that the amount of the flavonoids increase in reduced date syrup. So this is our now result in reducing the syrup. So we successfully get some kind of low-calorie sweetener from the date syrup. A very simple step. So now we are making some business collaboration, and so maybe in the future you can get some kind of the reduced date syrup. So by the way, if possible, we would like to you to taste the polyols, but in the COVID-19 condition, well, we cannot give you that kind of the situation. I'm so sorry, and I'm very unfortunate. I feel very unfortunately. So by the way, so this is our member of our project. So of course, the UA University and Alpha Company and B Food Science and Mitsui Corporate Middle East related and our universities. So this is the photo of the 2070s, the Japanese SME platform. So we already collaborated with a student or UAE. So we did the clinical test of using a low calorie sweetener, and it shows that so the low calorie sweetener can reduce the increasing of the GI. So by the way, so we would like to move to the other approach. So the Japanese and the UAE food culture. So actually, if possible, we would like to give you some taste of the prototype. But today, I would like to share with our story and with our pictures only. So in the near future, I would like to meet you directly. So we collaborated with the Kimuraya company. So this company is a very old and a long history Japanese traditional confectionery company. So this company developed this kind of, we call the anpan. It's kind of the bread. It contains a red bean paste. So it is a kind of the collaboration of the European culture and the Japanese culture, because the red bean paste is a kind of traditional Japanese food, but the bread is a kind of European culture's food. So this company collaborated and then developed this kind of the new food in around the 19th. So then tribute to the empire of the Meiji. So then now we would like to develop some new food. So using the date palm fruits. So this is the scenery of the UA students collaborations. So he is the president of the Kimura company. Then we are trying to develop a new product. It's using the date palm fruits. So actually, the Japanese food culture, so using mainly the red bean paste. So and the rice and the flour and the starch loaf and the chestnuts, cinnamon, sesame, gardenia, and passmon, potato, and agar. So that's our traditional ingredient of the Japanese confectionaries. So this is also the example of the product. So if we can meet, so you can taste lots of the wagashi, Japanese traditional food. By the way, so our collaborative activity with UA University is kind of the developing a new confectionery. So first, you doing the market research with the
Excuse me, Dr.
students.
Hiroki, 3 more minutes. Thank you.
3 moments. Thank you very much. So then this is a kind of the traditional Japanese confectionery, and also we using a cutting edge technology. So vegetable powder technologies. So we can get some very good powder. So the nutrient in the vegetable is not changed in the process, and the color is we can maintain a very good. So this is the actual process, and the UAU student are doing it. So making a carrot powders. So cutting pieces, and then we through the machine, so we can get immediately. So within a second, 1 second or 2 seconds, we can get some kind of the powder like this. So and then so using that kind of vegetable powders and dates, palm fruits. So we making product ideas. So this is a example of the student develops the dates cupcake, dates castella, and the date chocolate balls. So unfortunately, so this year we cannot do such kind of the activity because of these situations. But I hope so it will cover and develop the new product collaborating with an UA culture and Japanese cultures. So that's all, but we would like to keep in touch, and then we would like to develop new food cultures in the new futures. So this is our reference, and then so thank you very much. So shukrans. So please keep in touch. So if you're interested in our activities, so please stop by our the exhibition halls. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you so much indeed, Dr. Hiroki, and thank you for keeping on time. Fabulous. All the speakers are really keeping to the time. We'll come back. There are a few questions in regard to your presentation. So if you allow me to go on to our last and but not least speaker for this session, Ms. Hala Tadreen. And let me introduce Ms. Hala to you. Ms. Hala completed all schooling and higher education in Canada and graduated from McGill University with a major in dietetics and human nutrition with distinction. She has always been passionate about community nutrition, and this is reflected in having done part of her internship at the Heart and Stroke Foundation of Canada, worked as a school nutritionist as well as at different medical centers as an educator. She has also participated in various activities tailored to the public in the GCC area. In the past year, she embarked on a challenging role at the food outlet that offers plant-based meats and healthy catering. This is fabulous. Hala continues to practice her role as a clinical dietitian in private practice. With this, I present to you Ms. Hala Tadreen, and her presentation is Plant-Based Meals, a closer look at this growing trend. Indeed. Over to you, Ms. Hala.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Just put the full screen on. Full screen on. Thank you.
Yes. Yes. Okay. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Over.
Great. So good afternoon, everyone. I'm very honored and happy to be participating in this IGD 2021 virtual conference. I hope you are enjoying it as much as I'm enjoying the lectures. I want to thank the organizing and the scientific committee for inviting me. And from my side today, I want to discuss plant-based meat and look closely at this growing trend. So the learning objective today will be to present the latest data and research on plant-based meat and to discuss the nutritional and environmental as well as economical aspects of these new foods. So a global trend that was interesting to highlight is that the demand for meat was expected to increase by 50% between the year 2013 and 2050. So a very, very large demand in a relatively short period of time for meat was expected. On the flip side of that, if we look at the global market for non-soy, gluten-free, and plant-based proteins, it was projected to be a $1.5 billion industry by 2022. So definitely a big industry demonstrated by a lot of needs from consumers. If you walk around grocery stores in the UAE, you see that these products are more and more readily available in various food outlets, restaurants. Even just a couple of weeks ago, I was reading that a famous chocolate brand is going to have its very own vegan version available on the shelves. This is also transmitted into, if we look at the publications done by search terms on PubMed, this is an interesting graph where we have the light green that looks at everything that is vegan. The orange bars represent everything that is vegetarian, all the searches and the publications. And the dark green bars represent everything related to plant-based. And we can see that the light green and the orange bars have been more or less growing at a steady rate or a very slow growth, whereas the plant-based in the last 10 years have grown at a very, very rapid rate. So what is exactly in these plant-based meat? If you live in the UAE, you've noticed that they have been...
We are losing you. We are slightly losing you, Miss Helen. Something with the microphone. Can you just come closer to?
Oh, can you hear me?
Much better. Thank you.
Sorry. Okay, I will stay close to... Sorry. So what is exactly in these plant-based meats? If you live in the UAE, you've noticed that these foods have become readily available. You can find them in movie theaters, in different restaurants, and or grocery stores. So in the next few slides, I would like to look at the ingredients and talk about the macros and the micronutrients of these products. So if we look at the ingredients, it's mainly pea protein, canola oil, coconut oil, rice protein, cocoa butter, mung bean protein, methyl cellulose, potato starch.
Again, we've got a problem, Miss Hala. I do have a problem. I don't know about the others. You either have to come closer to the computer.
Okay, can you hear me now?
A little bit better, but not the best.
Okay.
That's good. Okay, that way.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for that. So regarding the ingredients, it's mainly pea protein, canola oil, coconut oil, rice protein, mung bean protein, methyl cellulose, potato starch, and we have some apple, pomegranate, and beet juice extract, along with some potassium vinegar and lemon juice for flavoring. So if we look at the proteins, these are mainly the 4 or 5 proteins that are available. The peas, the mung beans, brown rice, and fava beans. Some variations may have sunflower seeds, but they are not available in all plant-based meats. And this makes it that the plant-based meat provides a complete protein with all 9 essential amino acids. Of course, it should be noted that if you were to have a falafel, you would also get a complete protein. This is for the proteins. Moving on to fats, these are mainly from cocoa butter, coconut oil, canola oil, and sunflower oil. And the latter two ensure that we have essential fatty acids provided. If we look at the carbohydrates, it's mainly potato starch and methyl cellulose. And the blend of carbohydrates really helps hold the ingredients together in order to get the right texture. This is why these ingredients are added. So it doesn't fall apart like a veggie burger or your typical falafel. So the potato starch, because it tolerates higher temperatures than cornstarch, it's an excellent thickener for sauces, soups, and stews. It also adds moistness to baked goods, and it's an essential ingredient in gluten-free baking. It is also quite high in fiber. So the end product of the plant-based meat will be having some fiber in it. If we look at methyl cellulose, it is a plant fiber derivative. It's basically a chemical compound that's derived from cellulose, and it's used as a thickener and emulsifier in various foods. And like cellulose, it's not allergenic, it's not digestible, and not toxic at all. Moving on to the micros, now here it gets a little tricky with the minerals and the vitamins because it really depends on the brand. But most plant-based meat contain calcium. As for the iron, of course, it's mostly non-heme because it's from plant-based. However, I will get into this in the next few slides. Some brands have the heme iron added to them. The sodium content is quite elevated at around 390 milligrams per patty. So this is also worth noting. Some potassium is also there, and some brands are fortified with the B vitamins.
Again, close to the microphone, Miss Helen.
Okay.
That's better.
Regarding the flavors and the colors, these are mainly from beet juice and pomegranate. And if you've handled any of these foods, you notice that they can be quite stainy on your hands, on the counter, because of their vivid red color. And so this is why these products are added to the plant-based meat. If you compare to your regular veggie burger or falafel, it's greenish, whereas the plant-based meat is really red in color. When you see it, you really think that it's meat because it's meant to mimic meat color. Some of these companies also have as their slogan that the burger bleeds, so that even when you cook it, it sizzles on the grill. And it's really meant to mimic having a meat burger, so having the same experience. So regarding the nutritional value, I will be mainly depicting the nutritional value of a plant-based meat patty. I must also say that these plant-based meat come into various forms. It comes in the form of sausages, of minced meat, and so you can mix it with parsley and onions to get kebabs. So different variations. But regarding the plant-based meat patty, it contains 250 calories, 18 grams of fat, 5 to 6 grams which are saturated, of course, no trans fats, 20 grams of protein, a good amount of fiber, around 2 to 3 grams. And here regarding the sodium, as I mentioned, it's a little elevated when we compare it to the potassium. The ratio here is 1.4. And of course, the recommendations aim to have 1 part sodium, 3 parts potassium. However, in this product, it's not there. Regarding the heme, iron.
Voice more, please. Microphone. Thank you.
Yes. So regarding the heme, some brands have the heme iron and some brands have the non-heme, which we will discuss in the next slide, but they are present at around 25% of the recommended daily value. Some calcium is also there, and some brands have B12 vitamin added to them. Some brands have no thiamine added, whereas other brands, I would say, have mega doses of thiamine. So looking at the nutritional package for each product, we can differentiate, especially when it comes to the micronutrients. So to conclude this nutritional aspect of the plant-based meat, we can say that they contain 3 grams of fiber. They are a good source of complete protein. They provide around 25 to 30% of the daily iron needs. As I said, some brands have the non-heme iron from the plant source. However, some brands have added a heme iron. And this is where some of the controversy arises, because the heme iron is from a genetically engineered from soya yeast. Now, I don't want to get into the debate of GMOs today, but because depending on the literature, some schools claim that GMOs have been around for 20 years and they are not harmful at all, whereas other schools and literature claim that they might increase the risks of certain cancers or allergies and have detrimental effects. So it's some brands of plant-based meats have heme iron, a GMO, but not all. As I said, they are high in sodium, around 390 milligrams per serving. This is mainly to enhance flavor. However, this high amount of sodium should be noted for any patient who has any kind of sodium restriction, whether it's hypertension or renal disease or any kind of cardiac disease where sodium should be restricted. Then we should take care before promoting these products. And as I said regarding the micronutrients, some are fortified and some are not. It's very label specific per company and per product. So that sums the nutritional aspect. I would like to take the next couple of slides to discuss the environmental aspect, because unfortunately we also the wildfires in Australia.
Losing you. Your
Can you hear me now?
Keep on going.
I don't know why the sound, I'm not moving at all from away.
I don't know, but am I the only one that has got difficulty in hearing Miss Hala?
No, we are getting the same. The voice just goes, then come back.
Yeah, it sort of goes in waves as you're sort of drifting away, but it just stays still near the computer.
Sorry for that. So,
okay, can't hear it.
Can you hear me now?
Difficult. Difficult.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay. So global warming is becoming an imminent reality. We all saw the wildfires in Australia a couple of years ago, unfortunately, which had a very bad effect on the environment, on the human, and the global aspect in general. And we must say that agriculture, forestry, and land use change contributed in 2010 to 20 to 25% of global annual emissions. So they definitely agriculture had its share in global annual emissions. And we cannot be consuming and producing the same way without making globally certain reforms. On the flip side of that, if we look at plant-based meat, and this is the companies really market their product as being environmentally friendly because they use 99% less water, 93% less land, 90% fewer greenhouse gas emissions, and almost 50% less energy. So definitely, this is a big amount. We are not talking just about 5 or 10% reduction. So on a global scale, we can see how using and consuming plant-based meat can have a positive effect on the environment. Moving on to the cost, because this is something that we cannot shy away from. If we compare the cost of beef versus the cost of plant-based meat, we notice that it is quite costly. Now, I must say that a lot of famous people and superstars have invested in these plant-based meats. If we look at the packaging, it's very colorful, more colorful than your average beef burger packaging. And the recipe is constantly being developed and adapted so that you have different variations of the product. They also make various joint ventures with the food restaurants to have their very own plant-based burger available. And so for all of these reasons, it translates into, when it comes to the consumer's pocket, the plant-based meat is quite costly, being 3 times more expensive. And so perhaps it's not available for everyone. Also, now you might debate that there's this environmental cost that you are saving, and how do you put a price tag on this? But this is also something to keep in mind for later discussion. So some platforms or some groups tend to...
Just to inform you, 5 more minutes. Hello.
Okay, I'll
Thank
move
you.
on. Yeah. So because some of these groups tend to overclaim the benefits of plant-based meat, saying that they make you lose weight, they are good for your heart, we should all be eating plant-based meat. Because we are clinical dietitians and we use and healthcare professionals and we use evidence-based nutrition, I just want to take the next few slides to...
Again, we are having difficulty in hearing you properly.
Okay, let's make this.
So we've got 2 more minutes.
Yeah, it's okay. So can you hear me now?
We can, but it's drifting in and out, as I said, like you're in a sort of near ocean and the water is taking the voice away. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, so regarding the benefits of plant-based meat, I will put aside the environmental aspect and talk more about the scientific aspects. So definitely plant-based meat is not for everyone. Perhaps with people who have of certain religious groups where meat is forbidden, plant-based meat can offer a nice alternative and food available. Also with people who report sensitivities to growth hormones or hormones that are fed to cows or antibiotics. However, this is a very small amount our population group, because recent studies indicate that natural steroid hormones have very negligible human health when they are used under good veterinary practices. And this is the case here in the UAE, where the agriculture system and the antibiotics fed to cows are very well regulated. Again, with plant-based meat, you avoid the worries of undercooking or mad cow disease. So perhaps for pregnant women or people who are immunosuppressed, they might benefit from having plant-based meats available. Lastly, this sentence or this studies have been published time and time again, where a high consumption of red meat is associated with higher risk of heart disease, obesity, and cancer. Now, we all know that with these diseases, I must highlight its high consumption. So if you have a patient that consumes red meat 7 days a week versus a patient that consumes red meat 1 or 2 times a week. Also with
minutes.
Yeah, with obesity, it's a multifactorial disease. So it's not just about the meat consumption, but is your patient sedentary? How much fruits and fiber he is consuming? Is he having any fruits and vegetables, and how much sleep he's getting? So it's a really multifactorial disease. And lastly, this interesting study where we looked at, it was published around 6 months ago, and it looked at people who consumed animal-based proteins versus people who consumed plant-based proteins. And it showed that people who consumed the plant-based proteins had longer longevity. Now, this, of course, is just plant-based proteins in general and not plant-based meat per se. So a lot of studies are being done on these products, but to conclude, definitely plant-based meat offer a tangible environmental advantage. Nutritionally, they are more or less similar to meat. However, there's this issue of heme and non-heme, there's high levels of sodium. Some are fortified with B vitamins, some are not. And lastly, we have the cost issue that also needs to be highlighted, because as of now, they are quite expensive. So with this, I would like to keep a list of my references. I want to thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed learning more about plant-based meat, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. Thank you for sticking to the time, and that's also great, all the speakers. Now, if I can have all the presenters to put your mic on and your camera on, thank you very much. We'll take 2 or 3 minutes maximum to address few questions that have been received through the chat box. And let's see how we go and how far they're about 5 or 6. I'll start, I think there are a few questions raised for our dates products. And let's just see The very first one from Dr. Latif, it says, dates can be used as a replacement for sugar as sweetener. Is this suitable for diabetic patients? Dr. Hiroki.
Okay, so I'm not the professional of the kind of doctor, so I cannot say that. But I think I've heard that some of the dates can be used for the diabetic patient, but sorry, I'm not sure about that actually. So
sure. Yeah, it also depends on the GI and everything else. Let's go with the second question again, directed to you. Does hydrogenation make dates healthy due to high temperature exposure?
So this is under research. So the fundamental nutrient is not changed, but actually, so some of the flavonoid increase. But we are not sure why the kind of the flavonoid is increased. So it's we're not sure, but maybe it has possible it add new value to the dates.
Right, and let me just take one more question for you. There are many kinds of dates, as you know, many species. Which best of those make syrup and all kinds of the same calories? So in other words, which ones are the best to be used and are all dates of the same calorie content?
Okay. I'm not sure the name of the dates, but it depends on the dates. So there's I forget the name, but there is the best one. But actually, so our technology does not depend on the type of the dates, so we can approach to the every kind of date. Yeah.
Right, right. I'll come back to you, Dr. Hiroki, but let me just ask personally a question to Ms. Halla. I thoroughly enjoyed your presentation and the innovative way of doing meat patties or vegetable meat to say, or pies. And yes, this has been very much useful with soy and making it green rather than red, which I really love. The only thing I am going to ask you, you've got a very high sodium content that you admitted to that. And given that we know most of the cardiovascular disease is also related to high sodium, is there any way you can substitute sodium with other herbs that can give you similar flavor, but not so much damage to the arteries?
Yes, definitely. I agree with you. Can you hear me well?
Not really. Not really. We need to check the mic on your computer. Anyway.
So basically with the sodium, like you said, it is a kind of a issue to consider, and the companies are hoping to innovate the recipes so that in the future they add ingredients that add taste and flavor but by decreasing the sodium content, so it's more adaptable and more flexible.
Right. Well, thanks for that. And Ms. Jamila, so that you don't, you feel not left out, I really like your motivational presentation, and I can see you presenting in front of people that are trainees and at your workshops. This is part of the government. Is that correct, that you're going to different places and presenting to train the trainer?
Yes, yes. Actually, we do have train the trainer programs. We have 2 or 3 programs, train of the trainers. And even we are going to lowers. Even we sometimes, I'd like to go to the kids and be with them and teach them. And they are the one who will make their own foods. Then we go to the mother. Then we go to like doctors and professors and do it. So we have different categories of people that you are training the people. Yes.
Fabulous. That's important. I mean, that's how we also learn. I've got my last 1 or 2 questions for Dr. Hiroki, and then we'll close the session. Do dates before maturity and before becoming a date contain fewer calories? So the question is, do dates before maturity become... So in other words, are you picking up, I assume the question is, are you picking up the dates from when they're fully mature or just before maturity in order to reduce the caloric content?
I think the more light, the higher the sugar content. So it means it contains calories. So
Yes.
Sure. So when do you pick them up? When do you purchase them? At which stage?
The last
Sorry?
stage.
The last
yeah.
stage.
Yeah, because
The
the way
last
that
stage.
he's showing, it's the last stage when it's the date is done and completed. Because the beginning it's the green one, then the half
Yes,
yellow and
sure,
half black,
sure,
then
okay.
the last one. And I think regarding the type, I don't know if it was khnezi or it was fard, because this is the name of our dates. That I can
Yeah.
see from the picture, it's khnezi or it could be the fard of one of the dates that he's doing. But so interested in that one. Arigato
Yes.
gozaimasu.
And then we've got the very last question, Dr. Hiroki, and this is what powdering the food cause it to lose some of its nutritional value?
Okay. So our technology can make the powder within 1 or 2 seconds. So under around 80 degrees Celsius. So it means it can keep the nutrient, even the vitamin C and B also.
Right. Okay. So at least the nutritional value it contains. Okay. We have exhausted the questions and we have exhausted the time allocated for this session. I'll ask you all to come on your camera on, so that I guess we are now taking a photo. Is that correct, Kim?
Yes, so please everyone look at your camera, your computer camera. At the count of 3, please take a smile. So 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay. Thank you so much, Professor
Thank
Lee,
you.
Ms. Jamila.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Kim, for your question. Thank you for Professor Lily. You were so awesome and wonderful.
Have a good day.
Thank
Bye
you.
for now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
All right, all attendees, please, we're taking a break now, but don't lose this connection. Don't lose the Zoom, as we have another session at 5:30, exactly 5:30, which is sponsored by Abbott Laboratories SA. So everyone, if you have time, please visit our exhibition in Abstract Hall. It has all the sponsors booth of this conference. All these booths has their chat functionality, and one of the representative will get back to you for any clarifications or inquiries. We have also our poster area, which when you click on it, it will direct you to all the posters and their oral videos, which will direct you to the YouTube account. So attendees, please stay tuned. Do not go, as we have another session coming up at 5:30, sponsored by Abbott Laboratories SA. Thank you. Attendees, just a quick changes. We will have the Abbott Laboratory sponsored session by 6 o'clock to 6:15. So please stay tuned. At the moment, I'll be closing the Zoom. Please don't lose the same link. We will get back to you at exactly 6 p.m. or please come in by 5:45 p.m. Thank you, attendees.